Hi, I'm Paul, and I'm a technical director. I switched from Google Workspace to Office 365 back in 2010-ish. If you want more reviews like this, please click below. Both Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace both have their pros and cons. They both solve problems in the workspace. They solve problems in terms of centralized email systems, centralized and shared calendars, and centralized and shared document management. But each of them has their own pros and strengths in each of the different sections that they actually try and go after. Whether it's Microsoft 365 going after the corporate and Google Workspace going after the forward-thinking company. Microsoft 365 is a fantastic piece of software. What we've found with most of our clients that are keen on moving to Microsoft 365 from either an on-prem exchange or from a POP email perspective, they like Microsoft 365 because it's known, it's understandable, it's got Word, it's got Excel, it's got PowerPoint, it's got Outlook. And that is a way that people start differentiating between Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. The Microsoft 365 is a known entity. And then when you add other things into that, like Dynamics, OneDrive, SharePoint, it's an easy shift in terms of the mind. They understand what they're going to be getting, and they understand they're in a safe environment that they actually can use 365 and understand what's going to be required of them. The Word makes sense, the Excel makes sense, and they feel quite comfortable. Google Workspace, what we've found is that it is primarily for forward-thinking companies that aren't held back by legacy systems and on-prem exchange, anything that is going to sort of like slow them down. It's also quite interesting to find the IT managers or the accounts people that we deal with. Those people are the ones that normally drive the decision-making process. And if a IT person or the accounts person, which is a strange person to do, wants to have a good email system and they're comfortable with Gmail and they're comfortable with Google Sheets because they've been using it for the last 10 years, they then say, I'd rather do that and have everything in the Chrome browser than have stuff locally on my machine. I want to be able to log in from home. I want to log in on my phone. I want to log in on my workstation. And all of those work together. They can save their documents. And because Google Workspace was actually started in the cloud, it actually works better for those types of companies. Both products are very easy to get started with. Both start with signing up for a trial or getting your domain registered and then logging into the admin section. Once you're in the admin section, things get a little bit more challenging. 365, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with the UI and it actually works quite well. When you need to start getting a bit more advanced, then you probably have to break out the PowerShell. And that's a bit of a negative in my opinion in terms of someone who doesn't actually understand 365 that well. In terms of Google Workspace, most of the UI is actually fine and works perfectly. As soon as you start deploying to 10, 20,000 people, the UI becomes a little bit slower to deploy from because you have to add people manually or upload a CSV. And then the Google equivalent of PowerShell is a thing called GAM, which stands for Google Apps Manager, and then you can get the rest of that stuff deployed. But in terms of the end users actually getting started, if they are familiar with Word and Excel, Microsoft 365 is very easy to get started with. If they're familiar with Gmail, Google Docs, Google Sheets, those are all absolutely exactly the same, except it's just on Google Workspace. So those are also very easy to get started with. So the top considerations when considering Google Workspace versus Microsoft 365 is a couple of things. One is price. The prices are very similar, so don't let that sway you. The second thing is, what is your particular company ethos? What is the type of person in your company? If it's a person that wants to do the legacy with Word and Excel, then certainly go that route. If it's someone who's a little bit more forward thinking and you've sort of like got a bit of a streamlined company that wants to get onboarded fast and get up and running fast and everything's done for you, then Google Workspace. But really it's up to personal choice and what makes sense to you. There are a lot of courses on various platforms that will do Microsoft 365 courses. There's a lot of courses on Google Workspace. Once you know what you want to do, go through a couple of those courses, get your end users to do a couple of those courses so that you get the most benefit out of whatever you choose. Don't just say we're going to do 365 and then don't use it properly. My mother has this saying that says, when we bought her a nice pretty computer, she said, Paul, you know what, this is a great computer, but it actually feels like I'm sitting in a Ferrari playing with a radio. And what I say to you is, don't just sit in your Ferrari and play with your radio. Actually get to know the meat and bones of your particular systems.